You said you can see the Mavs winning a game at home. What can they do differently to win game 3? I mean, they don't have that deep talent advantage, but they do have Luka Doncic. What do you think could make the difference that they could win a game 3 at home?
Well, obviously the biggest thing would be, you want to get Kyrie rolling.
Mhm.
He struggled so far in this series. And you can credit Boston's defense because they have so many guys that can guard that position. Well, guard Kyrie. You have multiple bodies. Everybody in those switch type situations bring length, bring height. So that's something that could bother Kyrie when it comes to scoring the ball consistently. But at the same time, I feel like this is something that Kyrie being one of the best scorers this league has ever seen. It's about him kind of figuring out their defensive scheme, finding his spots, finding, you know, where can I become effective in my offensive abilities in this series. It's going to be different looks than he's used to. When it comes to the playoffs, your first, second, and third options are studied. They're studied hard. Um, your tendencies, your intangibles, all that is studied hard. So, the Celtics defense knows exactly what he wants to do with those first, second, and third options. So now it's time for Kyrie to get to the fourth, fifth, and sixth options. And everybody doesn't have that ability. But I said earlier, this is one of the best scorers this league has ever seen. So he's one of those guys that have that many options when it comes to scoring the basketball. So I think he will have a great showing eventually. I'm thinking Game 3 will be that that first home game. Obviously, you have the home crowd, that energy. Sometimes that's needed to kind of get you over the hump and help you find that rhythm. So I think he will have a better showing Game 3, and I think this is a chance for the Mavericks to get a game in this series. I don't think it changes much, long term when it comes to who wins this series, but we will see a better showing from the Mavericks.
Well, look, I mean, the Celtics have played nearly 100 games if you count the regular season and the playoffs, and they're 78 and 20. So the idea that a team that is 78 and 20 would somehow lose 4 of their next 5
Right.
is, I can't see it. I mean, I just don't see a way for Dallas to come back, even though we've had some 0-2 comebacks, even somewhat recently, right? With Milwaukee winning its series after being down 0-2. But it's much harder to see against the Celtics team. Kyrie is going to have to get going if there's any shot of this happening. You mentioned that guys are studying him in film. What is that like during a playoff series when you guys are watching film and breaking down one guy? And, everyone's seen Kyrie Irving for, 15 years now. But what is it that the Celtics are doing in these film sessions as they're looking at Kyrie and the way he scored against Minnesota?
Well, one, you have your team film where everybody's
Mhm.
sitting down together and we're going over. Kyrie likes when he's on the left side of the floor, he loves to drive right and get back left or spin back left or whatever the case may be. But then you break it down even further. After you have that team film session, then it goes down to individual sessions where it's
Okay.
the guy that's the primary matchup in this series or that night where we're going to even deeper dive of what his tendencies are, what his habits are, his favorite spots on both sides of the floor, in the middle of the floor. Um, what's his favorite way to finish with his right hand compared to his left hand? Then you start breaking down the percentages. Well, when he goes left, he may shoot, 50%. Compared to going right, he shoots about 46%. So in this series, we want to try to get him more to his right. So,
Mhm.
that's usually the breakdown when it comes to, figuring out a guy's tendencies. And, obviously you can talk about it and preach it and study it all you want, but it's a lot easier said than done. But as of so far, the Celtics team has done a good job defensively. But, Kyrie being the wizard that he is, you know, um, I do think we'll see a big improvement on the offensive side of the ball because not only is he being studied, but he's also doing the studying himself. And all right, I see how these guys are playing me. He's going back watching film as well.
Yeah.
They're having their team film session. Then he's having his individual. When I have Jaylen
Sure.
Brown on me, when he closes out, he closes out left to push me right. So I may want to attack his top foot to put him off balance to then get to, breaking it down in those type of ways. So, the game is being studied on both sides. And like I said, Kyrie being the wizard that he is, I do feel we'll see an improvement.
I mean, I think this is skill upon skill, right? I mean, if you look at the Minnesota series, he topped 30 points in 3 out of the 4 games. And that's just because as good as Minnesota's team defense is, they don't have the individual defenders the way the Celtics do, right? I mean, they just don't have those highly skilled defensive specialists. And you've got 2 all-NBA defensive team players on the Celtics. You've got a third in Jaylen Brown, who certainly he was the first guy left off. He easily could have been on that roster. So the idea that you have 3 individual defenders who can really go at Kyrie. I thought Drew Holiday's defense on Kyrie in particular for the first 2 games has been exceptional and is one of the reasons that, I mean, we'll talk about MVP later in this show, but he has played so well through the first 2 games, not only offensively, but just defensively. And it's that defense on Kyrie because Kyrie is so special, right? I mean, we saw during that last round, during the conference finals, that he can just pick teams apart, even great defenses apart. But when you have individuals like Drew Holiday, when you have a guy like Derek White out there, I do think, Jaylen Brown, I do think it makes such a difference in limiting what he can do. He's shooting just 35% overall. He's got no made 3-pointers in the first 2 games of this series, 28 points total in the first 2 games of this series. So there's just no question that not only are the role players going to have to play better at home, and we haven't seen great play out of the role players so far, Kyrie is going to have to play better at home. I do wonder if in front of that home crowd, he's more comfortable. He went into this series being, I'm so zen about the Boston crowd and I've worked this out and I've talked it through off the court and I know how my feelings are and all of those things. He made that comment after game 1. He said, I thought it would be louder in here, which I thought was sort of a weird tweak of the crowd. I don't know why he felt like he needed to get into that. I saw him going back and forth a little bit with fans last night when I was in the arena. And I do wonder, it's been so long since he's won a game against Boston. And I do wonder if as much as he sort of was able to categorize it on the way into the series, if actually being in the situation was a little distracting for him. Obviously, the Celtics closing all his windows was also very distracting for him. But right. I do think in front of that home crowd, I hope that he's more comfortable just because we'd love to see this become a little bit more of a series and we'd love to see a good game, competitive game toward the end. Hey, listeners, we might be in the middle of the NBA Finals, but don't worry. There's still plenty of time to get in on all the NBA action with my partners at DraftKings Sportsbook. You absolutely have to check this out, especially if you're new to DraftKings. You can use my code, BULLYBALL, and new customers can bet just $5, and they get $150 in bonus bets instantly. That's right. New customers can bet just $5 on anything and receive $150 in bonus bets instantly. So what are you waiting for? Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use the code BULLYBALL only on DraftKings. And if sports betting is not yet available in your state, don't worry. DraftKings is the one-stop shop for all things daily fantasy, where you can join in on all the fun and have a shot to win cash prizes. From tip-off to the final seconds, DraftKings has you covered with same-game parlays, live betting, odds boosts, and so much more. So go ahead, download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. New customers use my code, BULLYBALL, and you will bet just $5 and you can get $150 in bonus bets instantly. That's promo code BULLYBALL only at DraftKings Sportsbook. The crown is yours. Have you ever wondered if Chet Holmgren might be a descendant of Abraham Lincoln? Or if a UFC fighter could beat an alien in a fight? Well, maybe you haven't, and that's okay. But Shea Serrano and Jason Concepcion from Six Trophies, well, they certainly have. If you're like me and you like to listen to as many good basketball podcasts as you can, after you're done listening to Bully Ball, you gotta listen to Six Trophies. Every week, Shay and Jason serve up the biggest moments from around the NBA with their patented mix of joy, banter, pop culture side quests. They also hand out 6 pop culture themed trophies for 6 basketball related activities. Stuff like the Denzel Washington in Training Day trophy that's given out to a player or team having the best week around the NBA, or the Lauryn Hill You Might Win Some, but You Just Lost One trophy for the team or player that just can't get it together. Plus a bunch more trophies for all the good, bad, or just plain head-scratching moments around the NBA. So follow Bully Ball, but also follow 6 Trophies on the Wondery app or wherever you get your podcasts. Or you can listen ad-free by joining Wondery Plus.